Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the G Shock Watcher. My name is Matthew Harbin and thank you so much for joining with me today. It is a Thursday afternoon and normally I would record videos on the weekend, but I was kind of excited about this particular video where I'm going to try and actually do some modifications to a GW-6900, which is reminiscent of what I saw in some TV series recently. So before we get started on that, if you enjoy my channel, enjoy my videos, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing, leaving a comment. Really appreciate your support. Watch of today is a digital square. It is the Chinese porcelain watch. Goes kind of nicely. The nice blue goes with the blue shirt. So I really enjoy this particular watch. I think it looks great. It shows up very, very nicely on the wrist. But we're not talking about this watch today. We are talking about this watch. This is the GW-6900. It is the tough solar multi-band 6 version of the DW-6900, I want to say. And the DW-6900 features a lot and is one of those watches which is endorsed by the military, at least in the US. And I noticed this watch being worn by Taylor Kitsch in the Terminal List and the Terminal List Dark Wolf. They changed a lot of watches. From what I understand, the author of the book that those series are based on is very much into his watches and the watches that people use in the military. But this GW-6900 is definitely one of those watches, or at least the DW variant is one of the watches featured by many military people. Now, when I watched the show, Taylor Kitsch was wearing this particular watch, but what he had on there was a paracord strap, which looked really, really cool. So I managed to get one. I managed to get a paracord strap, and this is the paracord strap which I got from an online shopping website. It has a Cobra clasp on it, so you can sort of see it's a fairly heavy-duty metal clasp. It clicks in very, very nicely. In fact, if I give it the click test here, you can hear that click in. Very, very solid, very, very well-made clasp. Very well-made paracord band, I should say. The nice thing about this particular paracord band is that as I engaged the people who are building it, I could tell them exactly the size. I could tell them exactly the colors I wanted to go and wear. And so I thought these colors would go very, very nicely with the actual watch itself. So I wanted to do this a while ago. I wanted to bring these two things together. The challenge I had was that the lug width on these particular watches, is really very, very small. It's about, I want to say 16 millimeters. And getting this particular thing onto the watch was going to be quite the challenge. So I had to do a little bit of extra research and I managed to get some of these. And these are essentially adapters to the watch to be able to give it a larger lug width to be able to attach the paracord band. So now I have all of the required pieces to make this happen. So let's go and see if we can actually take our GW watch and combine it with this very cool paracord brand. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's see if we can make a magic happen. So we have this particular watch, the GW-6900. This is the watch that we're going to modify with this paracord bracelet. And this was the key, was these adapters, the 16 millimeter to 24 millimeter straps. So that's what we're trying to use here. So first off, we're going to take off the bands from this one. And I learned in the past not to overdo it. You don't need to remove the case. We just need to remove these on the side here. So we've got some screws here on the side that we need to remove. And then once that's done, we should be able to go and get the watch released on the side here with some specific tools. So let's go and remove these first. And as we do this, we will obviously speed it up so it's not so boring. Okay, all screws are currently out. What we need to do is to remove the band, and we need a different tool to be able to hook in and pull the band out from the hooks. So this is what we're going to need, and this has a little sort of hook on the end of this one here to help us pull the band out. It's very hard to focus on, but you can sort of see that little hook. That's what we need to be able to pull this out. So let's just put our screws carefully to the side, and let's jump in here and see if we can pull this out. That was fairly easy. That's one. There we go, that's number two. So both bands are out. We want to make sure we keep those pins, but the kit that we had, we need to add these extensions to it. This does have pins already inside of it. So let's bring these out. So we have two extensions here. We have three large pins, that's for the large end, and then three small pins for the area inside. So this should, in theory, attach somewhere like that onto the watch, and so you can see that adds the additional size onto the watch itself, but we need to get those pins into there. So this goes here, this one goes in here. It's a nice solid fit too. It feels good. It feels like it's going to stick pretty well. So let's see if we can't get this in. Okay, with Hollywood Magic, I've actually managed to get these on. Now, what people aren't going to be happy about is I had to remove the back plate to be able to put those adapters on. And it's probably due to the fact that that area here and that area here was kind of blocking the way for the adapters. But now I've done that, those things are on pretty solidly. And I'm hoping that the back plates I've put back on with the ring, it's going to be safe from a water resistance point of view. So that should be okay. So that was painful, but we managed to get there. So let's go and put these side screws back in. Okay, watch is assembled, and hopefully it's still intact. Still looks pretty decent so far from that angle there. So yeah, let's hope that things are okay. So the next bit then is we've got the strap. We need to get it into here. So what we need to do, let's separate this out. and essentially work out which way should this go. So if I look at this watch, okay, so short on top, length on the back. These are both the same sort of length. So if I did this, let's sort of see how would I want this to sit. I suppose it doesn't really matter in this sort of configuration. So let's just see if we can go from the top and the bottom. So let's put these pins in. We've got these longer pins. Put these into here and see if this works out. So we'll pull this through. Okay, that's out. Let's separate this. I'm going to thread these through. Okay, they're in. Let's now get this on the end. Okay, both are now on, and that was super finicky. It was really a case of making sure you lodged one in one end and tried to squeeze the other one in, but it is well and truly on. And sorry I didn't show you everything as we went ahead and did this, because I'm sure it would have been very, very boring for all of you. But the fact that's on is very, very cool. Let's have a look. And there we've got the Paracord bracelet with a bit more light. What's interesting is that if I look at it, there's probably space to be able to go even down a size. But it seems to be on. Let's switch back. So ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. We have the GW-6900 with a Paracord bracelet on it, or a Paracord band, I guess you'd sort of say. It's done. I will say it was not a simple experience, but then again, watch modifications rarely are. Things that I thought about this, look, you absolutely need adapters to do any sort of changes to these sorts of watches. The 16-inch lug width really makes it kind of prohibitive to do any sort of real customization. So you need those adapters. And then once I worked out that the challenge was to remove the back plate first to be able to get the adapters on, that made things a little bit easier from the get-go. And then finally, just the absolute patience to try and actually get the pins into the right orientation. I mean, the Paracord bracelets are not thin at all; they're pretty thick, and so when you're trying to get those into the bands, into the adapters, and with the pins, it can be quite challenging. Risks. Okay, we took the back plate off. I didn't want to do that because it could potentially compromise the water resistance, but I did check that the O-ring was back. The only other test I can go and do at this point is to really run this underwater, or really immerse it and see if we get water leakage, and I'm hoping we don't do that. What I might do is do it again and maybe look at doing it with a smaller band, maybe dropping it down 0.5 just to get something as a tighter fit, because I don't necessarily like a loose band. And if I put this on and wear it, and this is proving to be more difficult than it should be, when I have it on there, it's got that really loose factor. So it would probably be better if I had it down a little bit smaller. At least now with the adapters on, it should be a little bit simpler to replace the Paracord band with something smaller and see if I can get it. Because right now I can put a whole finger in between here. So that is probably too loose for my my liking from that angle. But you know what? Cool experiment, cool look. The GW-6900 with the paracord bracelet. I like it. I just don't like the size. And I wish I'd known more about the adapters in the first place and how to assemble them. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I hope this video was useful and it helps you look at how you might potentially modify your watches with something like a paracord bracelet. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.